When you hear the sound of the bell, you know you're in the championship rounds with King of Essex. So let's get to it. This off delayed episode. And as a matter of fact, I had one in the queue loading, as I said on Instagram, but sometimes the quality of my episodes are so superior that the information that I don't want to be redundant and repetitive. So shout out to my constituents in the boxing community that understand that my absence is not uninformed. I know everything that's happening. And so it'll be a bit of a review, and I'll try to approach what's current. Not really much going on, but or not much going on that you haven't heard me mention. That's why it's important when you hear me say, revisit this catalog. It is extensive. So let's begin with the last time we saw each other. From my measure and memory, a very underwhelming performance from Mary Spencer of Canada, the WBA 154-pound champion. Unanimous decision win. I guess she might be in a transition, trying to reinvent herself as a boxer, puncher. Initially tried to be more like a power puncher, knockout artist. Such is not the case. And so um, I'm seeing a developing fighter despite being a world champion. More to come. She's got to get down with Oshae Jones, though. There's nothing going on at 154 unless the powers that be, whomever they are, can get Ema Kozin a passport or stop her from hiding or whatever's happening, or Cecilia Braekhus, right? It would be a great opportunity for Spencer to get a name on the resume. Braekhus, of course, is the WBC interim champion at 154 pounds. But if it ain't Oshae Jones or Cecilia Braekhus or the aforementioned unified champion Ema Kozin, not much happening. Of course, the rematch with Femke Hermans could always be tempting. But we'll have to see how those things turn out. Desley Robinson out of Australia. She went into this match as the IBF middleweight champion. She left the WBO and IBF unified middleweight champion. We know that the middleweight division predominantly preoccupied by Clarissa Shields. So those belts need to be vacated, or if has any intentions of coming down to 60, which isn't that far from 68 or subsequently 75, who knows? But right now we have a unified champion, Desley Robinson, after a unanimous decision win over what's the shorty's name? Chloe Thunder or Chloe Lightning or something like that. But um not many contenders in the middleweight division other than Olivia Curry out of the Midwest. I believe she's out of Illinois. So Olivia Curry, a former opponent of Shadeja Green, a very good name. Tamm Thibeault, she just got in the game, so to speak, but certainly at middleweight being groomed for a title shot by MVP. But let's talk about her opponent, Tamm Thibeault's upcoming opponent. And this match is in June, but her opponent, what's her name? Mary Casamassa. Um, Not much of a amateur pedigree, but from what I understand, she's a hell of a fighter. And Tamm Thibeault and Mary Casamassa will be fighting soon. And maybe the winner of that belt will position themselves for a shot at Robinson's middleweight titles. Although, of course, we'd have to check the rankings and see how those factor in. All right. Moving on, just a quick recap if we haven't or you haven't heard me talk about Gabby Fundora. I think she's a hell of a fighter. There's no need to rush her at 115. Yes, they talked about potential fights with Clarissa Shields, but there's plenty of fights along the way. If we're going to jump all the way out the window and say what is left for Gabriela Fundora to do, well, there's only one thing. She has to fight Kenia Enriquez, the WBC interim champion, who's been an interim champion, I believe, 3 to 4 years, despite Fundora having undisputed status. So that has to be cleared up in the same way Taylor and Cameron need their trilogy. But Enriquez and Fundora should be a good bout at 115. And if not, lots of smoke at bantamweight. If not, Ellie Scottney and Fundora at 122, even though I think the height disparity, that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Featherweight, who likes Fundora at featherweight? All right. Tiara Brown versus Gabriela Fundora. Why not? they both need, some recognition, if you will. It's an exciting fight, sure. Did I mention Bumgarner and Fundora is the fight that I'd like the most if we really, 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 really gonna jump out the window? Fundora and Bumgarner. All right. So yeah, but give Fundora some time. I'm not sure what her body structure is or will fill out. Some people say eventually she'll fight Clarissa. That fight may never happen. However, if you're talking about in the long run of things, perhaps again, long run, it may be likely that she may face a Lauren Price again in the long run by the time she goes from 112, 115. Shit, Jasmine Ortega at 115 is a great fight. So let's not rush Fundora because there's lots of options, but certainly not Jocasta Valle and Fundora. We don't want to see that fight. It's terrible. And yeah, so moving on. Now let's talk about what's happening. I mentioned Jocasta Valle at 105 couple weeks ago at this point. Sarah Borman defended her WBO strawweight division title, a split decision victory. So let's hope for the unification. If in fact Valle moved up to 115, that was just a fight because they owed her a fight. I believe this is all my assumptions. They owed her a fight and some money. They got to do something with Esparza. They made them fight. Cool, but is it Valle's intentions to unify at 105 again and truly become undisputed, or will she take a crack at 108? I happen to think she'll stick at 105. So Borman's a great opponent, as is Japanese fighter who will be fighting soon, Yuko Kuroki. All right. She's the WBA champion, 105. Okay. She's fighting against Nanako Saraki. And this will be at in June 26th. So some things happening in the strawweight 105-pound division, but not too much. All right. So let's talk about some more fight announcements. Let's talk about 135. Let's go up a bit, come back down. No. We'll stay low. We'll stay low. Let's stay at 105. I want to talk about a prospect. She's kind of cute too. Guadalupe Medina, 9-0 with 2 KOs, 105. Is this a potential? I mean, she's a prospect. Depending on, I got to take a look at her box rec. She may be approaching contender status. Maybe she can lift the belt from Kuroki of Japan or Borman, create kind of semi domestic North American, you know what I mean, Central America, you know what I mean, fight between Costa Valle, who knows? But be on the lookout for Guadalupe Medina, who's in action on May 17th next week. Okay. Yeah, so check her out. Only one division up. This is junior flyweight. Evelyn Bermudez is the predominant champion, if you will, at that division. The other belts are kind of scattered all over the place. But yeah, you got Jocelyn Corrado. No, Jocelyn Camarillo will be in action on that same card as Guadalupe Medina. This one is May 17th. And because on that same card, I mentioned again on a previous episode, Mizuki Hiroto, she will be fighting. She is the 6-0 undefeated super flyweight WBA champion. Not WBA. I'm so sorry. She's got the WBO title. And she could be on a collision course with any of the 115-pound champions, especially Jasmine Ortega. She could be in set for collision course with Jenny Fuchs somewhere down the line, or Lynn Sandstrom of what's she from, Australia or Zealand, somewhere down under, but she's been, just recently ranked number 1 in the WBA at 115 pounds. So back to 115 pounds, that division. Yes. What do we got? Forget about 115. 115's done. Let's move on. Beatriz Freire. I was talking about the card, that particular card, but move on to Beatriz Freire. We're shooting right up to 135. She is in action on an MVP card, although she still, I believe, remains signed to Matchroom at this time. We've seen, heard, talked about the big signings by Matchroom. May not be such a foregone conclusion, but it seems like she may end up on Matchroom, especially if there's any inclination towards Ferreira versus Bumgarner. All right. Maybe Bumgarner's not so fast to move up to 140. Maybe she will move up to 35, get that belt from Ferreira, right? And then perhaps challenge Caroline Dubois. Who knows? But I'm hopeful, naive, optimistic, a lot of things that maybe do contribute to some of the positive vibes that make these fights happening. Because one fight that I mentioned, positive vibes, I put it out there. She'll tell you herself. I mentioned it to her in person way back in December. Clarissa Shields will be fighting Lonnie Daniels, and I should have had it pulled up. I again in the best interest of getting this episode out on the streets, as the saying goes. I forgot exactly the logistics of that particular fight, but we know that it's going down. Finally, I guess where some would see that we have a quality opponent for Shields. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, yeah, so good stuff. Good stuff all the way around. Um, Daniels, of course, is also recently signed to Salida Promotions, as is Che Canali. She's another light heavyweight or heavyweight division champ. So there's just some, kind of thing where, depending on the sanctioning body, they either don't have a heavyweight and have a light heavyweight, or their heavyweight begins at 168. Can't remember the particulars, but what I do know is that yes, these are more accolades, trinkets, more legacy, however you choose to frame it. And that's where Shields is clearly focusing her energy. So I guess this should help separate what's happening between her and maybe some of her constituents. She pointed out, maybe as Devin Haney should have done, and maybe as some fighters, or like Shakur Stevenson has done, they're not after the circus fights, the big purses, the pay-per-views. They're after a particular legacy by earning a particular reputation by winning titles. And so if that's what Shields is doing, I'm a blue chipper too. I love the finer points of boxing, the more academic part of boxing. But if that's the case, don't worry about what's going on in the streets of boxing. Don't worry about what Amanda Serrano's doing. Don't worry about Katie Taylor's doing. Don't worry about those girls that are jumping out the window, getting big money purses, fighting their rivals, acquiescing to certain demands when it comes to promoters. Listen, you can't worry about them girls. Like, yo, when you in the house, don't worry about what's going on in the streets. You in the house. College shit. When you go to college and you try to play in the streets, something always gets fucked up. Stay in the academic route of championships and titles and stop worrying about what these big money street girls is doing. They getting bags. They look attractive, man, but earn your wage the way you're doing it. Enough said. I'll move on because eventually Franson Cruz-Dezurn and Clarissa Shields are going to meet in some sort of unification, Salida Promotions. I don't know. It is what it is. Um, I also don't know, and I don't know if you guys know, tell me. I don't know if Marshall, Savannah Marshall, that is, and Shadeja Green is signed, sealed, and will be delivered as unification bout on the undercard of the all women's big get down on July 11th. I don't know. But if it is, I'm excited. I don't care if it's delayed. I'm excited about that fight, period, since we can't get Marshall out of witness protection. I don't know if the rematch has been offered for between her and Cruz-Dezurn. I know Cruz-Dezurn has been avoiding or whatever you want to call it with Green. So at least if we get Green and Marshall, I'm cool. Some moving at 168. And yeah. Now, more fight announcements. Marilyn Rivas and Joanna Wanyu, that WBA eliminator at the super bantamweight division. That will also be May 17th. So, I think that's pretty much all we got. And then we want to talk about some. Oh, Nisa Rodriguez lost her O a couple weeks ago in Long Island. That is Sweet Destruction out of New York, police officer. She was in there against a debuting opponent out of Germany. Listen, it may be an indication that those that have the opportunity for 100% commitment may have an advantage over those that have to serve two masters, so to speak, as the saying goes. But it's early in her career. Yeah, Rodriguez will be back if this is truly what she wants. All right. And again, if she's doing anything at middleweight, she might want to go holler at MVP. All right. MVP will market her well, especially I just mentioned, it could get her in that discussion very early in her career, but could get her in that discussion as an eventual opponent for Desley Robinson if she's willing to go through perhaps the winner of Tamm Thibeault and Mary Casamassa, something like that. All right. Get it entertaining. All right. Speaking of entertaining, let's talk about this weekend's entertainment. We have some bouts on the docket. Let's start with the title bout, the lone title bout. This is on the undercard of Erickson Lubin. His main event on Pro Box. You got the WBA, and it took her a while to get it. Technical draws and all sorts of unfortunate circumstances. Nonetheless, Nazarena Romero, the WBA 122 Super Bantamweight Division champion, she will be defending her title against Mayele Flores, how do you say, Rosquero out of Mexico, 12-1-1 with 4 KOs. She's actually the former WBC Bantamweight champion. She lost her title to Dina Thorslund. So this could be a pretty good bout. It's going to be a pretty good bout. Tune in. Like I said, it's on the undercard of a very solid Pro Box card. All right. Also, friend of mine, friend of yours, Peggy Whitmore, who I've always discussed as being an eventual potential opponent for whomever, especially if it's Bumgarner at 130. Peggy Whitmore, undefeated 5-1, most notable win over Mia the B Ellis. She is in action against an undefeated fighter out of the Illinois area. She has a bit of Asian heritage to her. Nice looking girl, as is Whitmore. 5-0 as well with 3 KO. So the record's looking equally nice. These two undefeated fighters will face each other this weekend. So yeah, be sure to tune into that. All right, where you can find it. I think it's on a Boxing Insider card. So yeah, tune into that. Now, I mentioned MVP and what they're doing with women's boxing. Amanda Serrano over there helping them shake and bake. And you have Puerto Rico prospect Elise Soto, 7-0 with 7 KOs. She will be in action against Colleen Davis, the 4-2-1 Davis with 2 KOs. A solid veteran, if you will, despite what seems to be a limited pro record. The most significant opponent that she's lost to is Ayana Verduzco, also known as Right Hook Roxy, the daughter of Coach G. So we're going to see how that bout turns out. That's on the undercard of an MVP promotions card. I think Lenin Pero is in the main event of that one. That should be Friday night. Also on that same card, you got 5-0 super flyweight contender Nat No Love Dub. She's in action against undefeated prospect her damn self, Nayeli Rodriguez. So that's pretty much where we are at with women's boxing and the state of it. Again, when I'm missing, I'm not missing too much. And when I do show up, I show out. So that is today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for showing love. Comment, like, subscribe, share this information. Practice it in the mirror like you trying to practice your tough guy scowl, if you will. Plagiarize this shit and share it. People will know that it's my verbiage. It doesn't matter because what does matter ultimately is that boxing gets to thrive and survive through our spirits. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, friends. I'm out. Until next time.